a lot of you are new to me. I think you just recently signed up for my newsletter, so I'll just introduce myself. I'm an eco-print and collage artist, and I'm talking to you today from my home studio in Waterford, Connecticut. I love working with paper, especially repurposed papers. Things like this little Panera cup here. I mean, a lot of people would see this and say, well, this just is ready to go in the trash. And I look at it and I was like, oh my gosh, look at the color. I can take this thing apart, peel it up. I've got some nice green color there. I've got all this texture on the inside here. I can deconstruct all that and use it. So that's the kind of stuff that gets me excited. But today we're going to be talking about rusting, one of the natural processes I use in my work. So I'm going to be showing you how to go about rusting up some metal cans, and I have some examples to show you of what I've been doing with them. And I'd have a second demo that I don't think I told anybody about, so that's just going to be a little bit of surprise when we get to that part. So, and I'm going to share my screen because I have a couple things I wanted to show you, so everybody can hopefully see my screen here. So where do you find rusty metal? This is my collection here of all the pieces that I find when I go out taking walks in my neighborhood. I'm just amazed sometimes. I mean, I'll come back with, 8 or 9 pieces, and sometimes I'll find one, but over the years I've amassed quite a collection. This rusty can of nails I got at the Restore. I don't know if you know what the Restore is. I mean, I think they're around a lot of states, but it's basically, it's like a thrift store for building supplies, and they have furniture, and all their proceeds goes to Habitat for Humanity. And they have some, I mean, why they would have a can of rusty nails, I don't know, but it was like treasure to me, so that was fine. And then these odd pieces over here on the right, I actually was just getting out of the car in the Best Buy parking lot and found that really cool piece on the right there, that kind of rounded shape. And so you just got to look for it. Once you start looking for it, I think you'll just see it everywhere. And also like salvage and kind of the junk type of antique stores, these little swirlies here on the right. My husband found those at a salvage place in San Diego, and we used to live there. And then your kitchen pantry. These are all the cans that I'm going to be working with today, just to show you what you can do with these. And I like to have a nice variety. I'm showing you all the different sizes here, from the the tomato paste and the sauce are nice and small, and also to have a variety of the lids. So the one I use the most for all the different things that I do, the can part as well as the lids, is the medium but tall one. The baked bean can is a really, really good size. And then the coffee cans, if you can find metal, I know a lot of them are paper and plastic now, but if you can find the metal ones, they're really nice. And so it gives me a nice variety of the can lids, because then you can get a lot of different circle size prints, which is really nice. So okay, so I'm going to show you, I'm going to start the, here we go. This is the one I need to find. So basically, I'm going to start with this can here, like the baked bean can that I said that I like so much. And you want to take the top and the bottom lids off. And I have a special can opener. This is from Pampered Chef. And when I use this, I don't get any sharp edges on the lids, and I don't get any sharp edges around the inside. So I like to use that if you have one like that, because this regular one that you would just, kind of open along the side like that, it gives you the really sharp edges. And I'm always, I would be afraid I'm going to cut myself. So I definitely like having this one. I'm sure there's other ones besides Pampered Chef that probably do the same thing. And then also there's these lids that have the rounded bottoms. I guess they do that because they stack a little bit better. So those, unfortunately, I mean, you could use them for this part of the can, but I generally like to have it so that it's all the way through. And then I would just start by, the first thing you need to do is just, of course, rip all the paper off. So also you see here, there's this glue. There's some glue on here that was holding the paper on. If you can get a lot of that off, because paper will stick to it. I've used it for eco printing, and then I've had paper rip because it got stuck on there. But and I guess if you can stand it pretty good. So I'm gonna put my gloves on because before I start roughing this up. And I like to use the sandpaper, some pretty rough sandpaper. So the grit, I would say this is a 60 grit. And I've got here, I think this one is, yeah, this one's 100 grit. So 60, 80, or 100 grit is pretty good, because what you're doing is you need to rough up the surface of the can because there's a coating on here. And it just helps things go a lot faster. I mean, yes, you could put this out in the elements and eventually it's going to rust if you just left it like that, but it's going to take a lot longer. So I will go ahead and really sand that up, or rough that up along the top edges, and, you know, try to get like in the grooves and everything. And just spend a lot of time making sure that it's really scratched up well. And then I'll do the same thing with the lids, both sides. You know, all the way around that and the edges, because these ridges on here make really nice concentric circles when you're making prints. Okay. And then once I have these all nice and scratched up, I'm going to take a mixture of vinegar and water. I like to use 50-50. I'll do 50, you know, a cup of vinegar to a cup of water. And just kind of spritz it. Now you could also use salt water, that would work. And then I would just put these outside in the elements. You know, you can use salt water or the vinegar, or nothing at all. It's especially if you scratch it up. If you just put them outside, especially over the winter, with the snow and the rain and just the different weather, the humidity, it's going to start rusting for you. Okay. And then I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so I put these outside. I have an area in my backyard where I can put these, and so this is getting rusted over here, and then that's about 2 weeks, except for that one that has a lot of black on it. The rest of them took only about 2 weeks to do. And I would say the one thing is you have to be really careful if you're doing it inside, like if you're doing it in your basement or your garage or something, make sure you put a piece of wood or your surface is covered with plastic, because you will it will stain everything. If you can see this piece of plastic that I'm holding up, that was what I had down on my surface, and I had several layers of paper, and the rust will go through pretty much anything, except it didn't go through the plastic. So you can have that on the bottom, or just like I have mine out on a concrete surface, and I don't care if I get rust on that. But it's you know, it's all about the lines and the circles. So these are examples of rust prints that I did on paper. You know, the lids, I mean, there are a few washers on that one on the left, but you can see the nice concentric circles on the from the can lids, and then getting the stripes from the ridges of the can. And these are some rusty prints on fabric. And I've used cotton and wool and linen. I mean, just all kinds of fabric that works really nicely. And then this is not anything from the cans, but I just had to show you this because I just love how that orange rusty color looks on the indigo blue of the denim. And then I have a couple of samples of how I use my rusted papers. On the left is one of the papers that I do collages in my sketchbook every week. So sometimes I'll use the rusted papers there. And then on the right, I have a mixed media piece where I started with a rusted piece of paper, and then I added some more rusted papers, collaged them on, and then also stitched with some thread. And you can see I love adding the little elements, the lightweight little pieces like the washers and maybe some nails. I will stitch them on. And this is a piece I did with fabric, rusted fabric, and then I do a variety of stitches. There's some cheesecloth on there, some washers, and I love that little gear down the bottom. That was a really exciting find, that gear. Okay, and then the second tutorial I was going to show you, something that you'll be able to do as soon as you get a can that you have nice and rusty. If you like to do any stitching or have any use for different threads and strings, you can make some variegated thread like this. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So for this, I'm going to put my gloves back on. And so here I've got a can that's already got a lot of nice rust on it. And I've got some string. And you can use thread, you can use, I've got several different thicknesses. This is a nice thin one, or you could do even a regular thin sewing thread, or a much thicker piece of string too would be fine. So what I'll do is I will at first I will spritz it with a little bit of vinegar and water just to get that a little bit wet. And then I'll just start wrapping the string around that. Just kind of pull that down. And the more you put on, if you have a lot of layers, then you're going to get more of the variegate, the variations, because of course, the closer it is to the metal, the more rust is going to get on there. And if you've got them overlapping, and just keep wrapping. So I would just keep going and going and going. And let me just get some scissors to cut that. It just depends how much string you want. So I would really do a lot on there. And then I would, again, put a little bit of the vinegar and water on there. And then what you need to do is you need to keep the moisture in there. So I've got a very well-used plastic bag I've been using for this. You can see there's a lot of rust on here. And I'll just take that can and just wrap it with that plastic bag. And then just tuck in all the edges. And then you can just let that sit. And usually you get a very quick reaction on this. I have one here that I got this one ready on Thursday. And I probably could have done it just last night and it would have given me a lot of color on there, but you can see how rusty that thread is. I can undo some of it. I'm going to take my glove off to get that. There we go. Okay, here we go. And as I'm undoing it, I'll wrap it around my hand and then just unwrap the whole thing. Oops, almost lost that off the table. Because then what you'll want to do, so you don't get it all tangled up, I like to take a either a twisty tie or maybe a clip like this, so that I can keep that separated, because you'll definitely want to put that in the water and maybe some soap and water. If you've got a strong vinegar rusty smell, you're going to want to get that out of there before you use it for anything. So just wash it up, and then you can just let it dry, and then you've got some nice variegated rusted thread. Okay, so I see, let's see, is there any way you can make rust marks on the paper? Is this the same way you make marks on the paper that you use? Yes, the paper that I used in my collage, I actually I wrapped it around here, so you get these really nice, beautiful ridges. That's how it got the lines. And then let's see, for the paper, do you also just wrap around the can? And how do you get the rust on the paper or the fabric? For the paper and the fabric, those two pictures that I showed you, yes, I just wrapped it around here. You just have to kind of keep it damp, and you can keep checking it to see how much rust is on there, because so you just never know how quickly the reaction is going to be. It depends on the humidity. It depends on the weather and the heat. I think in the summertime, things tend to rust quite a bit quicker. Did anybody else have any other questions? I'm not sure. If I didn't answer what you can go ahead and unmute yourself and just ask me if you want. Oh, do I spritz the paper with vinegar solution? Yes, I generally do. I will get the paper damp and wet. If it's something that can really hold up to a lot of water, like a watercolor paper or a printmaking paper, I'll actually soak it in the little, in a water and vinegar solution for a little bit. And then I'll take it and put the rusty pieces on it, and then covering it with plastic helps helps it stay moist for longer so that it will, and then you can just keep checking it. Like if I'm putting it in the basement, I'll get it wet, put the rusty pieces on and cover it with plastic. And then I'll just come down and check it the next day. And if it looks like it's, if there's enough rust on there for what I want to do with it, then it's finished. Otherwise, if it's like you want more rust on there, you can re-wet it and just cover it with plastic again and then just keep it going. Does the paper smell? Well, it does smell when you first get it done, but then I always soak it in water, a water solution, because the rust is, some of it may come off, but it really stains. So you're not going to lose all of it. Yes, I do. So again, if you really didn't like the smell of the vinegar, you could try the salt water or just use regular water and see how that goes. But pretty much after I wash it, then the smell is gone once it dries. Do you lose a lot of the color? No, really, I don't. Yeah, I mean, some of it, because sometimes when you see it, you'll actually get a real layer of like almost like a rust paste on there. If you wash that while that's damp, yes, it's going to go away, but you're still going to get your rust print. So you're going to lose some of the color, but not enough to really make a difference. And then if you wanted more, you can just start the process all over again. It looks like you should wear old clothes. Yeah, and definitely, I mean, your hands, your fingernails will get, if you don't wear gloves, everything just turns black. It's really, and then they smell. But I have learned that using lemon, so I do have soap that I use that has lemon in it, or actually if your fingernails are really bad, you can take a lemon half and just really, that does help take some of the black, and also takes the smell out too. So any other questions? I think I got everything. Okay. I find that stitching over rust is difficult. Yes. If you are going to want to stitch over a fabric or even paper that you've rusted, the heavier the rust is. I mean, that's metal on there. So yes, it will be very hard to stitch through. So you just might want to be careful with that if you know you're going to be stitching. And also if you're ironing any of the fabric or paper, you would definitely, I have an iron that I use in my studio, so it doesn't really matter if it gets scratched up because I'm not using it to iron my clothes as well. But yeah, the needle, you just have to kind of get it so that it's not super, if you can feel that hardness on the paper and on the fabric, it's going to be really difficult to stitch through. So you might want to go a little bit lighter on the rusting part for that. Do you rinse the paper? Yeah, I do rinse the paper, and then I will just lay it on a shelf. I have some drying racks down in my basement that I will put it on there. Okay, I was going to share my screen again. So I'll go ahead and I'll answer any other questions if you have questions. I just wanted to show you a couple of the classes that I've got coming up for 2021. Okay, well, these two here, these are a couple examples. If you can see, these are details where I used some of the variegated thread. I think you can see it better on the one on the right there, where you've got some spots that are light thread and some are darker. The one on the left, that's gray thread, but you can see some of the thicker string there is a rusted thread. So I really like the way that looks on there.
Kathy, did you use a spring or a coil on the left side of the left piece?
That was a bolt, a very skinny, like a bolt, very thin one. And when I laid it down there, it just made really nice contact with that paper, and I got that beautiful line there. So yeah, I mean, for a lot of I think using bolts and nails, I mean, I just showed you today, like the cans, to get the circles and the lines, but the more different kinds of metal you have, the rusty, the bolts, the nails, the washers, you can just get so many different kinds of prints. I mean,
Kathy, when you lay things down, is that one layer or do you have something over it? Do you roll it?
Oh, good question. Now, if I'm doing, you can do it both ways. Like with the fabric, you can roll it and twist it and make all kinds of bundles. With paper, what I do is I will put my, a piece of plastic down to protect whatever I'm working on. And then, yes, I layer it because I found that the rust will go through so many different layers of paper, whether you're using, especially if you're using lighter papers like tissue papers, coffee filters, maybe just some lightweight drawing paper. I will take advantage of doing that process. I mean, why just do one layer when you, and then you get different varieties of the prints. You'll get the top one might be really dark, and then it's super interesting how it bleeds through and how the top will be different. If you turn it over, you get a completely different look on the other side, and you never know which one you're going to like more. So, and with the fabric too, you can do layers because, take advantage of how strong, especially if you've got a really rusty piece, it's going to bleed through a lot. It's something really fun to experiment with.
And then do you put a weight on top of it?
If it feels like it's kind of uneven and I need to put the pressure on it, yes. Usually if I'm doing something that's all the same level, like a bunch of washers, it doesn't really need it. Although what you can do is you can sandwich. If you have your piece of paper down, you put your washers in another piece of paper. If you're layering it, it could help to put, put maybe a board on the top and then some weights on it. So yes, you can do that. It's not necessary, but again, you'll get a different kind of print from it. So it's nice to experiment with that as well. Okay, so coming up in January, I'm planning to do the first part, just a rust printing on paper. So that would include all different kinds of rusted metal, the cans included what I showed you today, but anything else you'd be able to collect, like those pieces that I showed you in the beginning that I find on my neighborhood walks. And then there are so many different kinds of paper you can use. I just, anything you can think of, you can put rust on. I mean, I even did something the other day. I had some pieces of Tyvek I was doing a class where we were making paste papers and I had some scraps left. And I thought, I wonder what that would, I mean, it'll work because it rusts plastic. So why wouldn't it rust Tyvek? So that was just something interesting to try. That did work. And then I'll do the second part somewhere, either later January, maybe February, where all the papers that we've rusted, then we could make some kind of a mixed media book project out of it. And as I was mentioned, I think in my newsletter, I had that whole long list of things that you could start collecting if you were interested in working with repurposed materials. And I save a lot of security envelopes, and I do a class called Mailscape Collage, where you can do landscapes, cityscapes, different tags, abstract types of things. And it's just a really fun way to do works on paper, collage, things on paper. And then another one is the onion skid dyed papers. And you can see from the one there on the left, the variety of colors you can get just from red and yellow onion skins. And because the different papers have different chemistries and maybe how you boil it or wrap it, it will, you'll get the different colors. So, and then on the right, those were all done. I mean, just look at that beautiful golden color, and that's all from the yellow onion skins. And then I have a lot of people asking me about the eco printing. Unfortunately, I can't do that until my garden starts to come back to life. So usually those classes start sometime in June, and I'll be doing more intro classes. And then this year I'm planning on doing specific classes where introducing like all the metal pieces that I'm talking about today. All of that stuff can be used in the eco printing process, and you can get some beautiful varieties, lots of grays and kind of purples and blacks. So introducing rusted metal into the eco printing process and seeing what you can get with that. And then also introducing some natural dyes. You can see the examples down here. I've got some madder and cochineal, and I'm trying to think, I forget what the yellow one is called. I can't think of, oh, it's called Osage. And then the Eco Printed Journal, I did that this October and November, and I actually sent packets out with all the flowers and all the materials, and that was really successful. So I'll do something very similar to that, I think, next time too. So. So if you wanted to, you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram and my website. And so I'll stop sharing my screen here. And if anybody has any questions, I was at Walmart. Yes, that's how I got a lot of my onion skins too. I go into the grocery store because they're just going to throw them away. So if there's a lot of onion skins in the bottom of the bin, I've never had a problem. They were more than happy to let me just take them and collect them. But I got very lucky this year. I volunteer at a food pantry, and we get these giant 50-pound bags of onions, and we have to make them into smaller bags. So I have quite the collection of yellow onion skins and red onion skins from those 50-pound bags. So I've got enough to last me for a good long time. All right. Well, oh, you're welcome, Margaret. So if there's any other questions, I just want to thank you all for joining me today. And I hope I gave you some good information and some inspiration to work with some rusty materials. Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you all for coming. So
Thanks, Kathy.
thank you. I hope everybody has, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and whatever holiday you're celebrating. I hope everybody has a great holiday, and boy, aren't we all looking forward to next year.
Yes.
Hopefully things will be better.
Stay warm.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.